Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a lead fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast, where I get to interview someone once a week that's been in this green building movement, sometimes for a little while. And I've known Dev for a long time, and I can't wait to hear her story. I know she's back in Colorado over the last couple of years and just one of the original when it comes to this movement. So, Dev, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Charlie. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We've known each other for a while, and I can't wait to get to present day where I know you're VP of Sustainability Consulting at Stok, but there's a lot that's probably happened before that. So take us back and tell us about those roots. Where did you grow up and go to school?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. If I could just pause, I wanted to ask, is today your birthday? Sure. Well, yes, to kind of give some history, I grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut. And spent sort of the first half of my life on the East Coast. I went to college at Middlebury College, small liberal arts school in Ely, Vermont, and majored in environmental studies with a literature focus there. I took a semester off during college, so actually delayed my graduation by a summer and did Middlebury's Spanish language school on their campus there, which was remarkable and beautiful. A few things I think beat a summer in Vermont. And after college, interestingly enough, I think I was avoiding diving into the real world a little bit and had learned about a program where you can get a work visa for a year in certain countries and found out New Zealand was one of those. And so went with my twin sister and spent a year in New Zealand where I had some of the best experiences and memories of my life. And actually one of my favorite jobs there, which was working on an apple orchard, picking apples from like sunrise to sunset. I had about 7 or 8 apples a day and I stayed healthy and had a great time. But in terms of, my career start, I came back to the States and started, in the environmental world. When I graduated from college, I knew I wanted to venture that way, but I didn't have quite a clear vision of what that was going to look like. So after, many job applications and pursuits, landed at a nonprofit in New York called Earth Pledge. And there were a number of different initiatives that organization focused on, but my particular focus was on green roofs and affordable housing. And I didn't have much background in green roofs or buildings for that matter, but it was an entry-level position focused on research and providing some consulting on some projects in the city and actually throughout the state. But this was really my first kind of land in the green building world and exposed me to what a big world and movement it was.
I love that. Okay,
and that was in 2005. Yeah.
2005. So that's how you get into buildings, but just probably that time in the Green Mountains of Vermont and time in New Zealand, probably just more sustainability minded, huh? That's just, you immersed yourself in it. So, because that's what I love to ask my guests, Ev, is just, when did you really start, not just getting into green buildings, you're answering that with New York City and green roofs, but just sustainability. It sounds like it's been around you for a while.
Yeah, I can't remember a distinct moment in time where it sort of clicked. I think, I don't know if it was growing, despite Connecticut and where I was in Fairfield, a bit of suburbs, I was just grew up with an appreciation with the natural world and experiences, even just playing outside and building forts with my siblings and camping and backpacking. I really just kind of had a relationship of awe and wonder with it. And I think realized, okay, we need to take care of it. There's this interconnection among us all, limited resources, and really to be mindful about how our actions impact everything.
Wow. Thank you. And then you kind of eventually made your way to Colorado, right? So maybe even New York, Colorado. Talk about that part of your career.
Yeah, sure. So after the green roof stint, I actually joined a small consulting firm, YR&G, which I know you're familiar with. Such a small sustainability world this is. So I know Josh Radoff was on your podcast a bit ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So joined YRG in their New York office and was there for a number of years. And that was really kind of my dive into LEED. My first LEED project was the SAP headquarters going for LEED Platinum, and also had the opportunity to get exposed to LEED Volume or LEED Portfolio pretty early on there. And it was a buzzing time for LEED and green building, and really also like a learn by fire. As mentioned, I didn't have too much background on it, but I think we were all just figuring it out and learning and diving in. So it was a fast-paced environment, wearing a lot of different hats, but a lot of learning and with great people. So that was in New York for a few years. And then, funny enough, I had two sisters that had made their way out to Colorado, each on their own pursuit. But YRG had an office in Colorado, and they were like, Dev, what are you doing in New York? Like, that's come out here. And so I spent a summer in Colorado, and then that quickly won me over. So I sort of had a trial period in Colorado, in Boulder, and then that won me over. And so a few months later, made the move full-time to Boulder and continued with YRG for a number of years and joined their offices here, and was there for YRG for about 7 years, but had a little bit of an itch to, I think to expand my perspective of sustainability and broaden it and the application of sustainability and really deepen my business acumen skills. And so I'd heard about Presidio, which is an MBA and MPA program in San Francisco. And so I went part-time at YRG and pursued my MBA Presidio in San Francisco.
Good for you. That's fantastic. And I guess that took you to California, and then you've been there for a while, and then we'll kind of connect the dots in a minute back to Colorado. Maybe this is a good time to talk about mentors. I love to ask my guests, did you have anyone you looked up to along the way? Maybe someone that opened a door for you. And sometimes, someone didn't, but they had to pave their own path. Other times, this person really maybe did help out. I would consider them a mentor. Any mentors along the way?
Yeah, sure. I think, in one regard, so many, and some I know directly and some I don't. So I think that, I had a professor in college, John Elder. He was my environmental literature professor, and he was just so humble and caring and believed in me and really also opened my eyes to love of environmental literature and a way of seeing the world that I hadn't been exposed to before. I'd also say Lauren Jarmuth from YRG and Josh, the two of them running this business, kind of jumping into the sustainability consulting realm, both relatively young at the time for doing it. And it was just wonderful to be a part of that. Janine Benyus as well, who introduced me to biomimicry, and I had the privilege of sitting with her at a conference and then I'm doing a workshop with her in Montana. And it was a bit of a fangirl moment. So again, kind of some are longer term relationships and others are just key individuals in the field that have just been an inspiration throughout.
Sure. Yeah. No, I recognize some of those names. That's really fantastic. So connect the dots a little more. So then you've got this postgraduate work, you've really sharpened the business skills, and then kind of get back on the sustainability consulting side.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't say when I went to Presidio, I also maybe had in the back of my head to move beyond the built environment. And so it's interesting enough sometimes to reflect back on that. But at Presidio, I did meet my now colleague, Bert Pemberton, and learned about Stok, which at the time was Environmental Building Strategies, or EBS. And Burke and I became close friends, and then realized, feels a little same but different, and really intrigued me because of its different organizational structure, focused on self-management, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And also working with some really incredible clients with big visions and ambitious goals. Yeah, so it kind of made me pause and think, this actually feels like a pretty exciting place.
That's fantastic. Thank you for connecting those dots. But you're back in Colorado, right?
I am. Yeah, COVID reflections got me back here. Right. And interestingly enough, when I moved to San Francisco in 2015 to join Stok, the idea was that maybe I would be there for a year or so and then move back to Colorado to help open up the office. And I ended up staying there for about 5 years, and the Colorado office, grew with others, and now is actually our fastest growing office. We have about 25 people or so in the Denver area, which is exciting. That's
amazing. Congratulations. One more look back, and then we'll get to present day, but achievements. Sure. It's a question I love to give permission to my podcast guests, Dev, is, what's kind of on the highlight reel? What are some of your proudest achievements?
Sure. Thinking both personally and professionally. One thing I didn't mention about the past, personally, after spending about 3 weeks in Santiago, Chile with a grad school project, I just fell in love with the city and decided to move there after grad school. So I didn't join Stok directly. I had a little hiatus down there. It sort of demonstrates to me taking a path unknown, a little uncertain, but responded to a desire for change and challenge. I've always wanted to live in another country, and I hadn't done that. And to do that again also still exists. So I look forward to that happening again. When and where, we'll see. But I think sort of taking those risks or doing something different is just not always the easiest decision, but usually very rewarding. So, and this certainly was.
That's a big, sound like you had a great time there. Anything else stand out? The achievements side.
Yeah, I think, certainly stepping into the role of a VP of Sustainability Consulting with Stok about 2 years ago. It's really been a wonderful combination of supporting team members and building client relations and challenging project work, as well as being part of mapping Stok's direction. So it's been a wonderful opportunity to kind of have a foot internally and externally, helping our culture align and stay true as we grow, and also tackle some pretty challenging issues that we're dealing with, and I know you're dealing with on the daily. So,
yeah, thank you. Well, I'd love to ask about projects. Some, I'm sure, even confidential, and you can't pick just one, but another couple projects as you look back, even your time at YRG or now Stok, and I know you're doing even more corporate initiatives, not just buildings, but there are a couple cool projects that really stand out over your career.
Yeah, I think, what really was a pivotal project I mentioned earlier was the Lead for Volume or Lead Portfolio program that I worked on with Citibank and a few other clients. Just shifted my focus and interest, and I guess I'd say sort of specialty on impact at scale and portfolio-wide efforts. And that Lead Volume just really helps to identify a standard process, that education and quality control and a standard, and how you roll that out across a portfolio rather than just on a single building effort. How do you do that and really integrate it into how a company works? And I didn't mention earlier, but we recently released the Sustainable Real Estate Program Handbook, which I authored with Stok about a year ago. And it really kind of demonstrates how to do this and is dedicated to accelerating the adoption of sustainable and equitable real estate solutions by outlining these key steps that were really kind of forming in my brain during that first project with Citibank.
Well, I can tell you're very proud of that. And here's that additional roadmap, right? So much work to do, even on greening of existing buildings too. And I know you've got a lot of experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's talk present day. So for those that don't know, tell us more about Stok, and then also talk about your role and what keeps you busy day to day.
Sure. Yeah, Stok is a real estate sustainability services firm. Our headquarters is in San Francisco. Given the last 2 years or 3 years now with COVID, we've got our team members across the country and some even internationally. We've grown to about 85 individuals, but are really focused on helping owners and occupiers invest in their real estate wisely. And we've got 4 core teams: our sustainability consulting team, which I head up, our real estate and workplace solutions team, our engineering team, and our commissioning team. And our goal is really to provide integrated solutions for our clients. And so my role focuses on working with our clients and partners and identifying what challenges they're trying to resolve or solve and how to prioritize. That's certainly something that people are juggling with on the daily, I think. Yeah, and then identifying the right SMEs to help push those solutions.
Wow, thank you. And I know you're plenty busy and growing the team also in Denver. And, we've had the pandemic hopefully in the rear view now. There's healthy buildings. Of course, there's decarbonization and ESG. And so how do you navigate it all? How's that working?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And it's, I think, one thing is just to start and do something. I think that we can get caught up in sort of analysis paralysis. And it does feel like we're shifting a little bit hopefully from goal setting to actually operationalizing those goals and putting those into action. And that's something where I see us really trying to focus as well, and our clients looking for our support with.
Thank you. Yeah, I threw a curveball there, but you had a great nugget. That was wonderful. And you're right, just get going. There's plenty. We can all be moving in the right direction. So let's talk to the future. I'd love to ask, if you had a crystal ball, what's coming next in this green building movement, or maybe what are you reading up on that you're kind of excited about?
Sure. I think certainly understanding the future of workplace and our hybrid approach, that's a big question. And I don't think there is a clear answer. We're still trying to work through that. And not one answer either. And maybe that's what's encouraging sometimes, is that there's not one right answer. There's going to be many, and really understanding what our client and partner needs are, what team members and employee needs are, and crafting a solution that meets that. And interestingly enough, Stok has a new report coming out that's focusing on this by our Director of Workplace Strategy and Wellbeing. And it's really looking at findings from a perception survey to offer clarity about what decisions around changes to the workplace experience will most positively impact employee productivity and retention and well-being, which is something that we're often looking at. So I look forward to sharing that with you and the group here.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll provide one perspective.
Thank you. No, you're putting out some great reporting and insights, and I'd love to link to anything that's already published. I can put that in the podcast show notes. So it's amazing. Let's do some quick rapid fire questions about you. Let's let our audience get to know you a little more. What would you say is your specialty or gift?
I laugh because I have a love of dancing. So I could say that, but something maybe something else. It would be a combination of warmth and, I like to work hard, but with some levity as well. So keep us human.
Well, I love the warmth, grit. It sounds like definitely some good resilience in there, determination, but very caring, kind soul. But now you can't get off the hook. So tell us about the dancing and tell us about that. So it sounds awesome.
Well, there's not much more to share, except I do think that the sustainability world does have a lot of people that love to dance. So I think Greenbuild memories are certainly testament to that. Yeah, and it's just a good way to shake things off.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing. And that's a good segue to the next one. Do you have any good habits or routines or rituals that you could share?
Yeah, I am trying to do more doing and less talking about meditating, which has helped. I really find that a wonderful way to start the day. Also taking meetings as a walk and talk. I don't know about you, but it feels like as much as we talk about trying to have less meetings, they still exist. And getting outside and moving during those as much as possible. It's a nice shift in the day.
Well, unpack that, because I could do a little more of it. I get a stand-up desk, work from home a good bit, but do you do it with just internal team member meetings, even client meetings, and the meeting requests? It's like, hey, I'm walking, give us a pro tip. How do you just say, hey, this is how I do it,
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically just internally, and also more, especially in my role right now I have a lot of one-on-ones with team members, and given that a lot of us are not in the same place, that, we're not going to be sitting at a table next to one another. So let's both enjoy a walk. We've all seen one another before. So it's primarily internally, although I also appreciate, and you're inspiring me to, have the question with my clients, like, hey, can we take this as a walk and talk, especially if it's not something that we need to dig into a document together or a spreadsheet or something. So I like to have that rapport with clients and partners beyond just internal team members. So
both parties encourage both sides to be walking in the moment, right? Then it's like more. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. So I'm going to challenge all of our listeners, more walking meetings. So Deb, we know each other a little bit. I'm a fan of a bucket list. Are there one or two things maybe you could share that might be on your bucket list?
Yeah, this is a good question. And there isn't something right now. And I don't know if that means, okay, I'm content with the days or I need to stretch more. What was on my bucket list was a trip to Alaska, and I did that. But that was a year and a half ago now. So it's certainly time to add some more bucket list items. I feel they will involve travel and as well as, connecting to purpose or giving back in some way. But I'm not quite sure yet what that looks like. What are yours?
Yeah, my bucket list, I've got categories. So some of it's travel and adventure. Some of it might be business or family related, but just different themes. And I try to do 4 or 5 a year. The pandemic slowed some of that. I've got a big birthday that I just had, and a friend of mine gifted me courtside tickets to the Atlanta Hawks. It's one of those where maybe I could have splurged and done it at any time, but it's pretty cool. Someone gifted that to me, and then I can check that. So some of it's even like sporting events, or one day go to the Kentucky Derby and have a mint julep. It's like, okay, I'll probably do that. That kind of sounds fun. So that's kind of how it rolls. Yeah. But you're going to have to let me know when you add a couple new things to the bucket list, okay?
I sure will. Yeah, you've inspired me.
Just a few more things. This has been fantastic. I always like to ask a pro like you, is there a book, a podcast, a TED Talk, a documentary, just anything you might recommend to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, again, I think that there's so much we can learn from so many different areas and arenas. And so this book I came across recently, and it's not your typical, it's not green building focused.
Well, that's okay. We get all kinds of cool book recommendations. It does not have to be about buildings. Yeah.
But it's literally been my kind of book of the year. And I gave it to my 5-year-old niece as well as my partner's 80-year-old father. And it's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie McCusey. And it's just a sweet story of friendship, adventure, and life lessons. So I'd say that. And then another one that's maybe a little bit more I don't know, in the typical is A Brave New Work by Aaron Dignan. And this really speaks to how it's one of the intro. It said, if we were to look at a dress from the 1900s and a dress today, we would see some stark differences and see some evolutions and some change. Certainly some things come back in style, but many things that we can think about that were 100 years ago to today look very different because there's been an evolution. Yet we look at the org chart for businesses and there isn't that much change for the typical. And so this book just explores self-management structures and autonomy and how really creating a culture where workplaces empower people to take care of themselves is more sustainable. And that ability to be nimble, I think, is really critical right now. So yeah, that's one that's been inspiring me lately.
Well, we'll put the links to those books in the podcast show notes. Everybody can check them out. And I can tell you're not just a good manager, you're a great leader, that you really care that much to change things up. So,
thanks, Charlie.
Keep up the great work. Let's talk a little bit about career. If you look back, is there any kind of career advice you wish you'd have known earlier?
I think to speak up and ask for, you don't need to have all the answers. I think this can really demonstrate curiosity and humility and desire for connection and vulnerability. I think we're needing to encourage that more and more, especially, the challenges that we're facing aren't going to be solved by a single brain or a single perspective. So I think that the more we can ask for help and not fear that not knowing, maybe the faster we'll get there.
How do you encourage someone that's bashful in asking a question that it's okay? How do you encourage more of, say, your team to ask questions?
Sure. I think modeling it and asking questions myself and other, leaders, even if we're all leaders, I think seeing it in individuals in all different positions and roles within the company is really helpful. And again, kind of helps encourage a level playing field, for lack of better words, or, perhaps just setting up a setting. Maybe it's more comfortable in a one-on-one space or place rather than in a group meeting or whatnot. So I try to just convey that I'm here to support in any way. And I too may not know the answers, but certainly there's no bad or wrong questions. So
thanks for all these good examples. That sounds like just lead by example. And I love that modeling. So last question, let's say someone's listening to the podcast right now. They're getting inspired by your story and they're just now jumping into this green building movement. Maybe it's a career change. Maybe they're a young professional. They're just now jumping in. Do you have any words of encouragement for them?
Sure. I would say reach out. I think that the sustainability world and network is quite small. I mean, you and I have known one another for, I think, over a decade. Yeah, over a decade. And, things come back around and I feel very blessed that it's been so supportive in my career. And I feel that many in this industry have had the same experience. And I think we only want to kind of feed that back.
Love it. Well, hey, everyone, I hope you got inspired. I did. And I want you to connect with Dev on LinkedIn. And keep up the great work. And thanks for all the management and leadership tips. I wasn't expecting that. I got it today. I'm taking notes. I enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Charlie. I enjoyed the time too. And have a wonderful birthday.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.